it's Friday, best day of the week, because I get to spend my day with Tony Beall.
Happy Friday, Julia. It's always good to see you.
Good to see you. I don't get to spend my day. I should say I get to start my day. And this is a really cool conversation we're going to have today on Fundraisers Friday on the Nonprofit Show. Frontline fundraising to consulting. This seems to be something that occurs a lot. I mean, I've witnessed this over the trajectory of my time in my community. And so I'm really interested to hear more about this from you and what you see and how somebody that might even be thinking about this for themselves. So we have a lot to talk about. So we're going to jump in. Again, we get to talk about amazing things because we have these presenting sponsors. And I want everyone to know this is very rare in the broadcasting environment. These folks don't put any pressure on us for editorial content. We can talk about whatever we want. And so that's really powerful. And I want everyone to understand how rare that is. And so our gratitude goes out to Bloomerang, American Nonprofit Academy, Staffing Boutique, JMT Consulting, Interim Executives Academy, Your Part-Time Controller, and of course, Fundraisers Friday. I am here today with the amazing Tony Beall, Mr. Nonprofit Consultancy. I'm Julia C. Patrick, CEO of the American Nonprofit Academy. Okay, my friend, big topic. We got lots to chat about because so many folks, I think, look at this idea, they consider it, they get asked to do it, and so let's start off with the why. Why make a shift in your career? Because it seems pretty perilous.
Yeah, well, first, kudos to our viewer or listener that kind of wrote in and
Yeah.
suggested this conversation, right? So, thank you to folks that stay engaged with us on a daily basis and share topics that they're interested in. And this truly came from someone that watches or listens to the show and said, "Hey, I've learned, love to learn more about this. What do you guys think?" And here we are today.
Thank you for bringing that up because I forgot the genesis of this show topic. And what you just described, it is very organic. I mean, people write in, they stop us in public, they say things. I was out yesterday all day meeting back-to-back meetings and somebody recommended a show topic. You're right, this happens. And so that's super cool. That's super, super cool. So that question is rumbling around. And let's ask the question, why? Why do
Yeah,
this?
yeah. Why would you do it? So a lot of folks, myself included, I started Mr. Nonprofit Consultancy in 2010. And I'll share part of my experience and journey as we kind of go through today's conversation. But my why was I wanted to have a larger impact on the nonprofit sector than I felt like I could have if I continued to work or support one particular organization. So that was my motivation. I loved the organizations that I've worked for and supported, every single one of them.
Mhm.
Uh, but at that particular time in my career, where I kind of sat with myself and how I wanted to contribute, I launched Mr. Nonprofit Consultancy because I wanted to do more. I wanted to have a larger impact than I
Mhm.
felt like I could have if I continued working for one particular organization. So really think about your why. Is it because you want to have a larger kind of footprint in the nonprofit sector? Is it because you have this entrepreneurial spirit that says, I really need to kind of put up my own shingle and do my own thing?
Yeah.
Uh, is it that you want greater flexibility in terms of your scheduling and your work-life balance?
Mhm.
So there are a number of different reasons that can support your why. But really think about why you want to do this and make sure it sits really good with you and that your why uh, is something that can help motivate you and kind of propel you through the incredible journey that
Mhm.
you're about to embark on if you decide to start your own consulting business.
Okay, so before we move on to the next question, this is like a gut-wrenching question. And that is, you sat with yourself. I love the honesty of this. And you ask these questions of yourself. Has that come to pass? I mean, when you said about your why and where you thought did that come true, or did you use that more to guide you? Do you see what I'm saying? Like, because a lot of times we have these images. I mean, you used the word entrepreneurial. We have a sense in this country, we glorify that. That's not the case in most places around the world, by the way. And so did those things align?
For me, they did align, but it happened in stages. So when I say I wanted to have a larger impact on the nonprofit sector, that had to start in my own backyard. So again, instead of working for one organization, now through consulting, I could support 5 or 6 organizations.
Yeah.
Now I'm contributing to the mission and the success of 5 or 6 different organizations right here in my own backyard, whether that was through grant writing, strategic planning, board development, volunteer recruitment, peer-to-peer fundraising, whatever that project was, I fulfilled that why just in my own backyard through the support of 5 or 6 different organizations that trusted me enough to contract me to come in and do that work. Then after a period of time, my why got bigger as I thought bigger and dreamed bigger. And so then I started focusing on what can I do nationally or internationally, and how can my impact be greater through kind of allowing myself to think bigger and trusting myself to do things outside of my own backyard. So my why was totally fulfilled in terms of wanting to have a larger impact in the sector. As I sit here today with you, Julia, is a great example.
Well, it is a great example, because I feel like you have brought me along in that journey, right? I mean, you have continued, and since we first met, you have continued to influence me, and yeah, you've pulled me along in that journey, which is, I mean, really interesting. So I would say your why has worked. Okay, so you have like this, yeah, it's like yay team, or more like whew. Okay, so you come up with this deep question about yourself and your life and your relationships and business and professional and health and spiritual. I mean, this is a heavy lift, right? It's not just something that you take lightly, and I think so.
Well,
Then go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't even touch on, the financial implications and that tough conversation. And, if you have a significant other and the amount of support that you need from them, ideally you do this because you have your kind of plan has allowed you to save money and be able to take that step on your own. For some folks, and we're seeing a lot of it happening now, they're part of a reduction in force in an organization, and they're really kind of thrust into having to think about doing something and doing it quick. And so they gravitate towards consulting because they have strong relationships in their community. They know what the heck they're doing. And so it's kind of natural and easy for them to go ahead and incorporate, or whatever that looks like. We're going to talk about that. They didn't really have the time to really plan financially for a little nest egg to launch this. So,
Right.
so all those other things you talked about, but then there's also the financial piece that you have to consider.
You have to consider it. So you talk about making this decision, and then you advise us to build a strong and trusted personal brand. Mr. Nonprofit Consultancy. Okay, I got to just say, fabulous name. So you really were smart and able to get that right. And
Well, thank you. And typically, I would say that your success in consulting is really going to be based a lot on your current
okay,
brand and your current trust. Your expansion, is you're going to build additional, trust and a brand as you grow. But to be successful, you need to, in some way, shape, or form, have an existing brand or trust within the community. So I was very fortunate. I was very involved in our local Chamber of Commerce at a point where our Chamber of Commerce really was recognizing the value of membership in the nonprofit space and how the Chamber could modify some of its programs and services to really support the needs of nonprofits. So I was very fortunate again to be part of kind of a small group of folks that launched a nonprofit resource kind of group at our chamber. That would have been in 2008, maybe 2009. It's still going strong. Every month, there are nearly 100 nonprofits that meet at the chamber to kind of share best practices, develop relationships, talk about collaborations, all the things that we had hoped would happen when we first started this back in 2008 or 2009. So I was working for an organization at the time, but I remember there was one particular day where a very trusted mentor and friend of mine said, "Hey, Mr. Nonprofit, how are you doing?" And so Mr. Nonprofit really comes from a nickname that was given to me at our local Chamber of Commerce. And it was funny because a few days before that, I was doing brainstorming, and all these words together and, what looks really cool and what can I call my consulting business? And the minute she said, "Hey, Mr. Nonprofit, how are you doing?" I was like, there we go. So
I love it.
that's how the name Mr. Nonprofit Consultancy was born, was because that was the nickname given to me by our local Chamber of Commerce.
You've never shared that. And I'm so glad that you did, because that's just awesome. And before we go on, I love that the chamber figured out that this was a viable business group, because not enough chambers do that. I mean, we know that that 1.8 million nonprofits registered in America. We estimate about almost 12 million people a day or go to work every Monday, as we like to say. They start their week working at a nonprofit, right? So, I mean, this is a huge, huge sector of our economy for many reasons. So I love that the chamber leaned into that. So kudos to them. That's really, really awesome.
Yeah.
And thinking back, 2008, 2009, woo, tough years, major economic, as many economists believe, a depression. Okay, but we're going off target here. So now the next thing you advise us is to clarify our niche, as we say, what's the itch in your niche, and your value proposition. This is interesting to me, Tony, because can you be all things to all nonprofits as Mr. Nonprofit Consultancy, or did you find that you had to kind of narrow it down?
I really had to narrow it down. So,
Yeah.
I come from that kind of space of experience where, I served as the executive director of very small organizations, oftentimes executive director of none, right? I was the employee.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you have to, wear all those hats. You have to be able to manage marketing and then oftentimes write the marketing campaigns, the slogans, sometimes design the logos.
yeah, yeah.
You have to do all of the volunteer recruitment, all of the donor recruitment and stewardship, all of you do it all. And so I came into Mr. Nonprofit with that I've done it all kind of mentality. And part of that also, when I think back at 2010, right now in my particular community, there are probably 10, and that might be on the low side, more consultants in this space than there were when I started Mr. Nonprofit in 2010. So when I started Mr. Nonprofit in 2010, there were not a lot of folks in the consulting space here in South Florida. Now it's like 10 times as many that that used to exist. But it was through time that I not only found the things that I provided to my clients that were super valuable, but also those things that I felt really comfortable in delivering. Like this
Okay.
really is my sweet spot.
Yeah.
So appreciative inquiry, strategic planning, board development, kind of fundraising campaign and strategy development. Those were kind of my sweet spots and where I really felt like I was providing the ultimate kind of value proposition, to my clients. But it took me a while to get there. I spent probably the first 2 or 3 years trying to figure that out.
Sure.
My recommendation is if you can figure that out right at the beginning, know the things that you're super strong at or the things that you really love to do, and go into the space with those first. You'll save yourself some time.
Well, Tony, I think to tag on to what you said about the financial aspect, I think a lot of times, and we see this in the nonprofit sector in terms of grants and sponsorships, you chase the buck. And so if somebody says, hey, I've got an extra 10 grand for strategic planning, and you're like, oh yeah, I can do that, and then because you're so desperate to
Sure.
get going that you follow it. And we see this with grants, organizations that really navigate to new programming because of the funding,
Mm-hmm.
when
Mm-hmm.
maybe that's not really in their wheelhouse, but they chase the buck.
Guilty.
We've all been there, right?
Guilty. I did it with my consulting business.
Yeah.
Signed on to help support things with organizations that I could do. I mean, the results were there, and I delivered. But reflecting, I'm quite certain there was someone more highly skilled in that space, or someone that might have enjoyed that time more so than I did.
Yeah.
But I also learned, because there was a time where I had a lot of clients, and a lot, I mean, anywhere from 12 to 15, and as a one-person shop, that's a lot of organizations to deliver on, and they were all at really low price points. So I also got to a point in my consulting and kind of my path where I said, I'm going to let go of some of these. As scary as that was, again, financially, what? You're going to not renew a contract? Mm-hmm. But I found that when you let go of some things and open up that space, mm-hmm. you provide the bandwidth and the opportunity for something bigger and better to move into it. And I only say bigger and better. It doesn't mean that their mission was more important or anything than that, but just bigger and better in the terms of sustaining a business. Mm-hmm. So, that was a tough decision that I made probably in year 3 or year 4, was to not renew with some of the smaller accounts to open up space for bigger things.
Yeah. You know what? I think that's a good way to live your life. With people, with things. I mean, I think that's a valuable life strategy.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. Okay, so then part and parcel to that, another thing you advise is to define your business framework and policy. This is interesting because I know some consultants that won't work with what they call vice organizations, like organizations that take funding from alcohol or tobacco, or they focus more into, say, like animal welfare or child services. And I'm wondering if that's important too, or does it, because it kind of tags on to what you're saying previously.
Well, I think I think, and we talk a lot about this also in kind of donor stewardship and prospecting, is there has to be an ethical alignment. So you have to have that ethical alignment with your clients in order to really provide them with the kind of quality service that they deserve. With the define your business framework, that is, are you going to be an LLC, an S corp? Kind of what does that structure look like? I'm not the one to advise you on that. There are plenty of accountants and CPAs and other folks for you to meet with, but you're going to have that conversation and think about what you want that structure to look like. And there are benefits to each of those and challenges to each of those. So again, whatever works best for you. And then the other things to consider are contracts. Make sure you have contracts ready to go. Liability insurance. I have liability insurance. I think it's really important, as a consultant, that you have liability insurance. So these are all of the kind of not so fun pieces often for folks that are really, really important. So again, what does your business framework and structure look like? make sure you have policies in place, and those are going to kind of like, contracts and all of the things that make you a viable business.
Right. I would love at this point to recommend an organization. It is called the SBDC, Small Business Development Center. They are based throughout this country, predominantly in community colleges. They contract with oftentimes retired executives or people in business. It's completely free, and it is a place where you can go, and then a lot of times they teach classes, but they might pair you up with a mentor. And it's just really a valuable thing. SBDC centers, Small Business Development Centers. They come under the umbrella of the SBA, the Small Business Administration. And as I say this, there's a lot of changes right now with this federal situation. And so things are being cut left and right. But this has been a valued part of the SBA, because if you teach people how to fish, they're going to be paying more taxes, right? They're going to be more successful in contributing to the economy. And so I think that's the genesis of that organization. But they are amazing. So that's, I think, a free place that I would want to recommend.
I'm glad you mentioned that. It's a great resource.
Yeah, really, it's amazing. Okay, one of the things you talk about is maximizing your network. And that's a fascinating thing, because in essence, you have to kind of re-educate or reintroduce yourself, right, to what it is you're doing.
Yeah, and so in the consulting space, and again, that's why it's so natural, I think, for many fundraisers, is you need a pipeline very similar to donor cultivation. You're going to be prospecting in your pre-approach, and then you're going to make an ask, and that's going to be, will you sign a contract to accept my services? And so you need to maximize your network, whether that's in person at events, whether that's LinkedIn, whatever that looks like for you. Whether it's TikTok or or Instagram, whatever it is, but just making sure that you're maximizing your network, because you're always going to need something in the pipeline. You're going to be, you're always going to need to kind of develop, unless you get really fortunate and sign some multi-year contract that covers kind of your expenses, and those opportunities are out there, and those things happen. But otherwise, you're always going to need to maximize your network and keep potential clients in the pipeline.
I'm curious to add on to this and get your perspective. Do you think that in some structural way for nonprofits, because of budgeting and fear, that it makes sense to contract right now more than actually hire on a full-time person, that the contracting space might be really positive right now?
Yeah, I do, and I've noticed, even over the course of the last 10 years, and maybe even more so over the course of the last 5 years, that the idea of fractional employees and contract support services is something that nonprofit organizations are embracing more than ever, because they're recognizing that one, it can be more affordable to contract some services. You're getting fresh perspectives and a level of expertise and talent that you probably could not afford to bring on board full time. So that's a real benefit. And I think leadership in nonprofit organizations are, again, kind of looking at, if this is our project, and let's say this project is going to have 12 steps, well, maybe I only need outside support for steps 6 through 9.
Interesting.
And so let me bring somebody in to help me with steps 6 through 9, kind of in this plan. So yeah, I think that nonprofits, just over the course of the last 5 to 10 years, have naturally leaned into the idea of contract support. So I think we're going to only see that increase, to your point.
Right. I think so too. And I think that if anyone's out there wondering if this is something that they want to do, I think the marketplace will support this idea, is supporting this idea, right? I mean, I think it's a good time. And I appreciate you giving us that perspective. over time of how consultancy can actually work,
Yeah.
and what it would look like. One of the things I want to talk to you about as we finish up is staying current and keeping learning, because, I feel like when you're a consultant, you're out there and every day is a different day and you're learning something because you get all these different organizations. You get to peek under the hood, right?
Hmm.
And so you have to be careful about disclosing what you witnessed and what you saw and what you learned. But
Sure.
I'm wondering about this, um, keeping current with things that maybe you haven't had your fingers in, but the ecosystem of the nonprofit sector.
Well, we kind of somewhere in today's conversation, I don't know if we started about, talking about life, being in the green room, we were talking about being lifelong learners and always wanting to learn.
We did.
And it's so important.
We did.
I just think in life, but definitely, if you're in the consulting space, nonprofit show, there's just so many resources available to help you stay current in terms of what's going on in the nonprofit sector. Donor
Mhm.
advised funds, I mean, how that has been elevated, what Mitch Stein and his team have done, to elevate donor
Mhm.
advised funds in the sector and the value of those. So there's always something to stay current on.
Mhm.
And so make sure you do that. And a lot of times that means scheduling time to do that so that every Friday at noon, you're going to have some professional development time with the nonprofit show or whatever that looks like for you,
Yeah.
right? Maybe it's a Wednesday or maybe you're like, whatever it is, but carve out the time. And I know folks are busy. And so that's why I say schedule your professional learning time because so much of it is available now asynchronous and you can just lean into it when your time allows. But stay current. Go to conferences, read articles, uh, and just be in the know.
Yeah. I love that advice of carving out time. One lunch a week where you're like, okay, I'm going to, share my lunch with something online or articles or whatever it is. There's so many things out there. And I agree with you. I think I hadn't thought of it that way, of actually planning that engagement out. But we all know, we were talking again in the green room, when you train with a trainer and you have that on your schedule, your different things happen versus like, oh yeah, I'm going to increase my exercising and come what may, right?
Yeah,
Because it's
absolutely.
exercising your brain.
Yeah, absolutely. And we all digest learning in different ways. Some folks like to buy a book, and sit down and read the book. Others like audio books, others like podcasts, others
Mhm.
like to watch a show. I mean, there's
Yeah.
just so I prefer watching videos. Really, that's how I prefer to learn.
Mhm.
If I'm opening up a hardcover, it's like a supernatural romance. I mean, I'm not opening up a hardcover for my professional learning, but that's just me.
Yeah.
But I definitely carve out the time and lean into, articles and
Mhm.
and online learning opportunities.
Mhm. Well, and I think at this moment in time, there's so much changing. I mean, you mentioned our friend Mitch Stein. The whole DAF environment is really radically changing
Mhm.
um, the donor behavior space. And we're
Mhm.
not talking enough about it, I think. It's just one of those things because it's still so new and it's
Mhm.
changing and all that. But I agree with you, understanding some of these new things that are coming, as well as new products. I mean, new technology. It's just a new dawn. And then I would end with, we have a new workforce behavior,
Mhm.
and how we engage with our own teams and staff. You got to train up on, because it's not the same, right? It's not
Mhm.
better, it's not worse, it's just different. And if you're not looking at some of these aspects, um, I've got to believe that there are a lot of consultants right now that are hearing staff related things from their clients, trying to figure out how this is all going to work, right?
Mhm.
And so you kind of become a party to that conversation as well.
And
Well,
I would
yeah, go
just
ahead.
just real quickly as in the whole spirit of continuous learning, I would recommend that anyone thinking about, being a consultant or who might currently be in the space, AI, make sure you are leaning into what's going on with AI and the opportunities that technology provides to you. So I think about consultants often when I think about the benefits of AI and programs like Chat GPT.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's very wise advice. Well, always Tony Beall, Mr. Nonprofit Consultancy, one of the wise voices in our across our nation. Oh yeah, that's a little bit of gray. Hell, I must be super wise at this point.
You're
My
so
gray,
smart.
my gray hair. But ask us these questions. As Tony mentioned, and thank you for remembering this, that this entire episode came from a question that was sent to us by a viewer. And so, reach out. You can connect with us on social media, of course, but if you want to get right directly into our mailbox, go to info@americannonprofitacademy.com, and we'll put you in the hopper, because we want to know what you're thinking and what your pain points are, and what your successes are too, right? Again, we are really successful because we have these partners, and they include Bloomerang, American Nonprofit Academy, Staffing Boutique, JMT Consulting, Interim Executives Academy, Your Part-Time Controller, and of course, Fundraisers Friday. Tony, this has been a really busy week. It's going to continue to be busy. A lot of whiplash decisions from the new administration. This has caused a lot of stress and duress within our nonprofit sector. So we want to leave you with this message, because it's probably more important than it ever was. And that is to stay well so you can do well. Thank you, my friend.